In 2015, I started a job that turned out to be very influential in my career. And when I started, the founders of the firm handed me Professional Services Marketing by Mike Schultz and John Doerr. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I wrote this about it as I read it. The thing I found most useful about this book is that it separately analyzed much of the philosophies I bring to business development into individual, trackable initiatives. It acknowledges the different methodologies that professional services firms practice in terms of sales and marketing, while emphasizing the importance of making a plan and living in it, which is something I find encouraging about the attitude and culture in my current position. I read chapters 1 through 5 for my onboarding. Some of my favorite takeaways, and I'm not going to call them spoilers because of the evangelistic nature of the nonfiction here. The power of the referral and its transferred trust speaks to how we qualify leads. A referral is like a blind date with a third party's reputation on the line. In the news world, which is my background, these days people are putting their faith in blogs as opposed to major news organizations because our trust in the generally accepted authority of corporate entities is trumped by the personal transferred trust of social endorsement. In our business, to market and sell our professional service, little can be more powerful than the social perception of our brand and the personal endorsement of a positively raving referral. Second one was, money is a conceptual thing. It can be just as difficult to sell a $5,000 engagement as it is a $50,000 engagement as it is to sell a $500,000 engagement. That's a quote from the book. The level of effort involved in a sale is rarely an indicator of the revenue an engagement will bill. We should weed out engagements that do not match our ideal client profile because our time and effort is best spent with the customers and engagements that are the best fit for us. Next one was, are people choosing us for our rates, our reputation, our brand? The book speaks to pricing and the importance of its role in perception of our brand. The pricing model you choose is a tool to help you maximize profit while also creating value in the mind of a buyer. That's another quote from the book. Oh, here's another one. Business plans do become important if you are trying to do something new and bold. But marketing and business development remain the red-headed stepchild. It is no longer debatable that strong marketing and BD can have major impact on the success of a professional services firm, although we still see firms argue long and hard about it. And that's been my experience too. I also love the concept of distilling the 7 levers that matter to increase revenue, performing a comprehensive audit to evaluate our network and marketing effectiveness, and most importantly, the 4 core measurable outcomes of marketing. Number 1, new conversations with potential buyers. Number 2, better odds of winning client engagements. Number 3, higher revenue per client and per engagement and higher fees for your services. And number 4, increased affinity with the actual and potential workforce. I'm storing these 3 evaluation tools separately for use later with our team in the continuing development of our business development charter. This was a wonderful book that was handed to me by Amy Whedon and Jeff Foley as I started work at Propeller. It was a fantastic book to set me up for the ways to be successful in marketing and selling professional services. It was a great experience to have these things together and to learn all this going in as I transitioned from a number of other types of business into this kind of work. I agree with all of these things, and I think I want to refer to that first one for sure here, where we talk about transferred trust. I think it's really interesting to talk about where the world was in 2015 to where it is today in 2024, and talking about how people putting their faith in blogs as opposed to major news organizations. It's not even anymore that people are putting their faith in blogs. It's just that people don't believe the news or reports at all. And then it's really funny, of course, that the word that I use here is trumped by the personal transferred trust of social endorsement. This was 2015, so this was before there was a political campaign by a person of that name. You look at the social endorsement and the weight that it pulls here today, and the way that we believe specific reports come from social endorsements, far more intense, far more strong in some cases than what we can get from the news. The way that transfers to sales and business development and marketing is that transferred trust. Referrals are the best way to win business. People do business with people they like and trust. Friends and family, kinds of people that are close to us. That's who we want to work with. So building that affinity and consistently asking for referrals from people you know and from people you work with is a very valuable thing. These other things that I put here are in lockstep with the way that my selling process works. It is key to identify an ideal client profile before you go out and try to win business. In my experience, working with professional services companies, very rarely do these companies want to do the work of defining what their ideal client profile is. And a lot of that is what leads to wasted effort in realms that don't make a lot of sense for these companies going forward. It's hard. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes investment. So many people, especially today and in the last couple of years, are white knuckling it through their work, trying to take whatever comes their way, and not really taking the step to define themselves or define their companies to figure out what is the best fit for them. That's something that I really focus on, is trying to figure out where value propositions connect most. Make that leap a little bit less for companies to do work with you, especially in today's world. If you're looking to work with an enterprise client or a corporate client that has multiple layers of procurement and other steps to vet things out, you got to do anything you can to show why working with you is the right decision for a company that's there. Another important thing to say about these 4 core measurable outcomes of marketing, one thing that I've experienced in a lot of places that I go is that people don't know how to track their success. People don't know how to attribute their success. People don't know how to document their success. In general, it's usually a lot simpler than people want to admit. These 4 things that we put here, the new conversations, the better odds at winning, the higher revenue, and the increased affinity. I've found that a lot of times business leaders want to complicate things. They want to make things more complex in the way to figure out if they're doing the things necessary from a marketing perspective. I sit on the BD side of the house most of the time. I sit on sales, and the same thing happens. People ask you, how are you going to judge your own success? And for me in sales, it's very simple. It's activities, meetings, opportunities, and wins. It's all a cookbook that leads up to that. And specifically, if you can distill your sales team's performance into those 4 things and figure out the rates in between, you can find where your bottlenecks are and you can find where your team needs to improve. That's something that I work really hard to do in my sales practice, and I've worked hard to implement in all of the organizations that I've worked for as well. This is a quote from the book. Although we still see firms argue long and hard about the value of marketing and business development, this book is a great tool to talk about why business development and marketing are important to any organization, and particularly to professional services firms. I was inspired by reading this book as I joined Propeller. Amy and Jeff had great visions for things to do to increase affinity and validity of the services they were performing here in Portland. My time at Propeller is still my favorite employment experience of my life. The firm has grown widely into multiple locations, and I would still recommend them here in Portland or in any of the cities that they're in if you need help with a management consulting project, project leadership, or anything of that variety. They are currently in Portland, the Bay Area, both Silicon Valley and San Francisco, Denver, I believe also Minneapolis and Dallas. So I'll put a link to the Propeller PDX location here in the notes from this. Thank you, Amy and Jeff, for the experience that I had there and all of the great friends and colleagues that I met at Propeller. It is the place where I met the most talented people that I've ever met in the business world. Everyone that I know there has gone on to great success. So again, this is Professional Services Marketing. I read it as part of my onboarding at Propeller PDX. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Till next.